Another year is beginning. January is one of the saddest months of the year, but also a time when in our masses we flock to the gym, go online to buy weights, download a fitness app, or sign up to run some kind of terrifying endurance event. The turn of a new year is a catalyst for us to get fit and healthy, motivated by what? Happy New Year, listeners, and welcome back to Explained, the Southampton Solent University podcast where we attempt to unpack what's going on behind the scenes of modern life, from sport and science to music and law, and everything in between. I'm your host, Robyn O'Mahoney, and today we're breaking down the psychology behind that famous New Year mentality, as well as the motivation we have in January to get fit and feel our best. Looking for ways to help keep that motivation going in a way that feels right for you? Stay until the end to hear our useful tools. Today I'm joined by Sport, Health and Exercise Science lecturer at Solent University, Lee Turner. Lee was a physiotherapist before transitioning to psychology and has spent a decade at Solent teaching a range of modules, including health, fitness and personal training, as well as exercise psychology. Welcome, Lee. Hi.
Hello, thanks for having me.
Thanks for being here. Before we get into some stats about motivation at a new year, I want to set the scene for you. It's January the 1st. You might have had a heavy December. Maybe there was a lot of food. Maybe there was some alcohol. I don't know. I don't know about your lifestyle. But what I want to know is when that January 1st hits, are you like, right, I've got to go to the gym. I've got to go and run 10 miles. I've got to download a fitness app.
Personally?
Yeah.
Do I? I mean, have I? Certainly, several times. Do I now? I would actually say no, because I think we all know that, you know, it's faulty. The idea of kind of being very structured and saying on this day, whether it's the 1st of January or any particular day, putting all of the pressure on that particular day, hasn't worked out that well for me. I can see the merits of it. I understand why people do it. I would say it's a nice time to focus your mind on a goal. It's as good a time as any, but so's midway through December or halfway through March. But personally, I would say at best, for me now, I'm more loose with the plans. So that would be my early answer.
Yeah.
I might be able to embellish later.
Okay. I look forward to the embellishment. So I want to go back to what you said there about it being faulty. So I'm going to get some stats out now.
Okay.
Thank you, Internet. So according to the Health and Fitness Association, nearly 11% of gym members join in January. Not so shocking, right? And then around February, around 80% of people have abandoned their New Year's resolutions. So clearly this aligns with what you're saying, right? That maybe the success rates in January are not so good, even though the intention is there to see it through. So I'm interested in knowing, why are we, so enthusiastic about getting fit and this and that at New Year? Is it that New Year, New You mentality?
That you're right. It's undeniable that we get a little kind of burst of, is it like a little bit of a new beginnings? It's a turning of a page. It's a little clean sheet, and it kind of makes, I think a lot of psychology at its root is intuition and common sense. It feels right to us that if you want to make something change and you want it to be important and symbolic and a big change, you choose a big moment to make that big change. I think it operates on a kind of unconscious level to some extent, and then beyond that we have to choose a time, and we find it really difficult to change on a Thursday on a nondescript week of a unimportant month. I think it just boils down to something about the human condition, that we lean towards that type of thinking. But you mentioned the word intention, and that's the crucial thing. I think we rely on that day as if that is going to be the mechanism, because it's that day and that day is important, and because I feel really motivated and I feel like I want change, and you feel like you've got all of this impetus, that the assumption is that best laid plan will turn into action. the road to disaster is paved with good intentions. They call it an intention behaviour gap, and it's very, very well supported in the literature. There is a gap between a plan and the action that follows, and if you don't make you don't have contingency for that, the intention alone is rarely. I say rarely. It can, but there's many ways in which it can fall down. They call it a shortcut, a mental shortcut, a heuristic shortcut. A big day, a new year, the leap in your mind is that this will mean that I can also make other changes in that moment, and that will be enough. It's a kind of shortcut we take. So there is an answer in there somewhere, isn't there?
Yeah, I think so.
Yes, me too.
It made me think about a couple of interesting things, actually. One is I'm doing a lot of yoga at the moment, and there's a lot to do with intention when you're doing yoga. And I wonder if there's something about just being like, okay, this is what I intend to do. This is my it's like a manifestation, right? Obviously, there is no proof of that manifesting works. We're going into the area now. But, psychologically speaking, if we have that really strong intention and we're like, right, I'm going to do this, does that really help carry us forward, or do you think not sustainably so?
Yeah, but I've got some more bad news on that front, I'm afraid. Yeah, motivation alone is often a bit synonymous like kind of willpower, and it's this kind of blanket term like, is motivation enough? Will you change if you want it enough? And we know that we kind of believe that, because when somebody doesn't change, what do you say to yourself? You say, well, they obviously didn't want it enough. But the fact is, you can really want something and be really motivated and intentional, and that yet still there is a gap. There is a gap that needs to be accounted for. Intention alone can get you so far, but you start to it gets you so far. It doesn't get you the whole way. I know you're talking about something slightly separate, the idea of manifesting. That does become a little bit harder to explain, and sometimes behaviour change is like that. Some people have epiphany type. They give up cigarettes halfway through a packet of cigarettes, and they never look back. And there's a big paradigm shift that happens for some people sometimes, but you can't rely on it. So you can't say, well, that will happen for me, because in all likelihood it won't. It's fairly rare though, and also really difficult to explain. But for the most part, garnering up all this like feeling of I really want this, it's likely not to be enough.
Okay.
And we've got to be careful that we don't wag our finger at somebody that fails, perceived failure, when they plan to do something and it doesn't come off, as if it's some kind of character flaw, something around willpower, and something around not wanting it enough. If you really wanted to change, you'd do it, wouldn't you? And as soon as you wag your finger at somebody like that, or they wag their finger at themselves, you're already on the behaviour change back foot, because you're talking to yourself a certain tone of voice. So if you set an intention and you fail, and there was no plan for the gap between thinking and doing, in a sense it's not your fault. You didn't plan for that gap, and you'll tip over the edge. And it's super well established. Motivation helps a lot, and there's lots to motivation. You want all of that. It increases your likelihood of change, but you must plug the gap as well.
Yeah. So my next question is a big one. How
How
do we plug the gap? I mean, so do you mean in terms of, have a plan for that? You have the intention, let's say, and then you've got the goal. So, okay, it's January 1st. I know that it's a new year. It's a new me, which, to be honest, is a term I don't really enjoy, because I think we don't need to change who we are fundamentally. But actually, yes, there is something quite nice in setting yourself goals, if they're healthy goals. Then you get the guilt when you don't succeed in something, and like you said, you fail. How do we safeguard against that? How is it? Just through planning? Is it through being like, this is how I'm going to approach it, this is my 5-step plan?
The intention itself is really important. So what people do, and you probably recognise this, I know I do, you set, like I said earlier, a loose plan, but you haven't really articulated the plan. So the plan is not really firm in your mind. So even though you want to do something, you haven't really said exactly what that thing is. And how do you say what it is? You describe it in all contexts. So if you want to stop any behaviour, where do you want to stop it? How often are you going to engage in that behaviour? Are you quitting it full term? Are you cutting back? Are you going to the gym 3 times a week? What is the goal? But there's so many interesting things around intention. You also have other intentions that run alongside that intention have you recognised the competing goals? Because at the same time as you want to eat healthily, you might have another goal, which is you want to foster better relationships with friends and family, and that might involve going out to eat. You want to enjoy time with your family. That might involve going to the pictures and eating popcorn. And then you start to have these competing priorities. So when you talk about one goal, one intention, it doesn't sit on its own, it sits alongside other goals. And sometimes we reprioritise another goal at an important moment. So if you're due the gym on the Tuesday and a friend is in need, and the goal to be a good friend is there, or somebody, you reprioritise. The planning is understanding what those other goals are, when they might get in your way, and having a plan that mitigates for it. So if that happens, then I will do something to still get me to the gym, whether it's on another day, whether I have a home workout, but the plan has to be there. Without the plan, you're relying on yourself, thinking in the moment. Basically just like a poorly sounds judgmental, but just a plan that's too loose. That you're going to struggle with.
I mean, from what you're saying, it sounds like, discipline is a really important thing.
I love this. You take the word motivation. Yeah, you said, what is motivation? It's such a big abstract term that it's very hard to define. Willpower is like that. Well-being is like that. Discipline is like that. What do you mean when you say discipline? What is it to be disciplined? Some people will equate that with willpower, and willpower is incredibly faulty. Willpower will get you, if you're 18 miles into a marathon, willpower will get you to mile 26. It will let you pull an all-nighter if you've got an exam the next day. You can will yourself, but there's a big mental cost to that. They call it ego depletion. It runs your energy bar down, and then at some point it fails. Willpower is good. Why not have some willpower? But willpower, if that's similar to what we mean by discipline, alone won't do it. Willpower and planning. And a plan is another one of those words that's a bit, just by definition, a boring sounding word. But the beauty of behaviour change and the answer to the intention behaviour gap is that it's got simplicity about it. The actual solutions that I might be able to offer are simple and they're elegant. And if you want to change your behaviour, that's the kind of solution you want, because it's hard enough to change behaviour and go to the gym without having to do a whole host of other things in order to make that happen. Like behaviour change, if it can be light touch and involve simple plans, simple effective plans, that's the kind of behaviour change you want. There's a big move in psychology to single point of contact, not quick fixes, but things that are not so onerous that people don't create the behaviour change because you're just giving them one more thing to do with their day.
You were saying earlier that you did used to set yourself goals and you don't anymore, and that you could embellish on that.
Doing behaviour change, understand how hard it is as a human being to do it. And I know about myself that if I overly formalise, and I've set very rigid goals, and in my past, that hasn't helped. So I've learned my way that draws from those tools, but it fits me. And it's really important part of behaviour change is the principle of autonomy and self-determination. So there isn't one way to change your behaviour. It's not all smart goal setting and you need to list and you need to do it that way. You need to follow maybe some of the principles I might offer a bit later perhaps, but you've also got to do it your way. So am I a highly formalised goal setter? No, because lived experience has told me that doesn't work for me in that combination. But do I employ the underlying principles of saying something you want to do, articulating it clearly, knowing when, where and how it's happening, with who, in what settings, and there's other stuff you have to do alongside it, understanding where the competing priorities might be, and then beginning to plan for, have contingency for. Do you know what behaviour change is? A lot to do with contingency. It's plans for what to do when. And a lot of it is what to do when the world is inviting you to do the off-target behaviour. If you have plans for that, then your goal is more likely to realise. I probably spend more of my time mitigating for the things that are going to offer to knock me off track and having something ready.
That's really interesting. And I would never have thought about that, actually, that whole mitigating. for almost disaster, or not disaster, but like you said, maybe you're planning to go to the gym, but actually your friend needs you, so you're thinking, actually I need to go see my friend, and then you don't go to the gym, and maybe you don't go the next day, and then before you know it, it's been 3 weeks and you've not gone to the gym, right?
That's the usual pattern, really,
yeah,
isn't it?
And
depressing the usual.
I don't know, if it's me in that situation, obviously I can only speak to myself, I feel really guilty. Like, I always feel very guilty if I lose track of my intentions and my goals. But then that's not healthy either, I don't think, because then you just get into this cycle of like speaking to yourself unpleasantly. But why do we do that? Are we nasty to ourselves as a motivator?
Exercise it's when you look at addictive processes, some of those obvious harmful agents. So we could list drugs, illicit drugs and things, and say, well, that's bad for me. Exercise kind of wears this face of like, hey, I'm exercise, this is healthy. But you get what we call positive exercises. These are people that exercise to regulate their mood, but they do it to get the hedonistic, dopamine type emotions. There's a lot of folk, and it's a combination of two, what we call negative exercises. In a sense, they're exercising to avoid a punishment. They're exercising to avoid feeling guilty. Yeah. If I miss the gym, I'm going to feel rotten. If I miss the gym, I'm not going to be able to look at my Instagram or TikTok or whatever it is and see somebody else who did go to the gym, I didn't go to. You're staving off bad feelings. And you get a combination of that with folk in the gym, as well as those people that have harnessed it as a really healthy, life-enhancing thing. But it's not to be taken very, very lightly. Exercise can be a way to punish yourself, and it's worth being aware of that. And the same with, that's what I mean about the wagging finger. It's if you fail to change your behaviour, you're not a flawed person. You're not lacking
You're
moral,
a person.
You're a person, and it's perfectly normal, and you probably just haven't put into place some simple, and I don't mean simple as in like you should have done it, it's so simple, but they're out there and they do help. It's not your fault. And we do, as soon as you wag your finger and you feel that judgment that I lack willpower, I lack discipline, I don't want it enough, I suck, all of these kind of things, well, we don't have to try very hard to see that you're going to start turning your own back on it and then be back worse than you started. And that's why I say about autonomy, like, you shouldn't really be in that environment being pressed on by the social world. Exercise can take all kinds of different forms and New Year's resolutions, and find the thing that is in line to your values, aligned to your direction, that you enjoy, and try to drive into doing it for its own sake, not to stave off a bad feeling or to derive a buzz or a high, but to get out of it things that you just what I'm driving at, things that speak to your own autonomy, because once we're in charge of our own vessel, we're driving the ship.
We are driving that ship. So in terms of, being driven socially, New Year, New You is obviously a global thing. Do you think that is helping people, that New Year, New You, go on, or actually that doesn't help at all? Because people need that autonomy, right? But does that help them, that kind of community aspect?
Like the kind of social pressure to do it, in all likelihood, probably not. For all the things we've just spoken to, because it's autonomy stripping, isn't it? Somebody's told you what to do at what time. It's a lot of the behaviours that people change end up being ones that are socially normative. So, and this is another problem with behaviour changes. You try to change too many things at once. So they're being influenced by the web. So they're getting up at 4 a.m. in the morning, and the pressure is to have an ice bath now, isn't it? Everything's cold water immersion. So 4 o'clock in the morning, I'm going to have an ice bath, in February, January, and then I'm going to read some pages of a book because we're meant to be literary, and then I'm going to meditate because it's important to meditate and be mindful, and then I'm going to phone a friend, and then I'm going to run, and then we do put so many pressures on ourselves, and you stop and say, how many of those are your goals? Do you want to be up to your neck in cold water, or is it because you've had a podcast that says that's what good people do? So if that's what we're talking about, then no. But if it's community in the sense of positive influence and people are joining in with you, and why not?
I saw this really cool, it's just started in Southampton. It's like a social run club, and it's free, and it's on a Sunday. This isn't an ad, by the way. We're not there yet. It's free, it's on a Sunday, and it's really... So it is people coming together and running, but actually it seems really appealing, because one of the things they say is we don't set a pace. And I thought, wow, that's so that's great already, right?
Yeah.
Because you know that there's no expectations. Maybe you'll
Yeah.
set expectations for yourself, like I'm going to run this 5K in
Yeah.
half an hour, whatever. But they're not setting expectations on you, and I think that's a really nice thing, socially. But I think it can go, like you said, into the negative, can't it? When it's really intense, or like you must do this now, and you must have abs in summer, and
of course,
I've got abs all year.
Yeah, why not? But the people that have abs all year, they might have taken all those pictures at a particular time in the year, and then they display those pictures across the year. So the notion is that they're like that all year round. There's a lot of figments and phantoms, and it's be self-referenced. Yeah. So when you go for a park run or whatever it is, run a little bit quicker, walk less, run more. It doesn't matter. I mean, I've been on park runs where somebody's run past me with a buggy. That's a moment. That's a moment when somebody's faster than me with a buggy with a child in it. But there isn't that sense of it's me running faster than you. If you can find that why, again, without sounding fluffy.
No, I love the fluffiness.
If you can find I would say self-referenced. And the one thing I've learned in my travels, not literal travels, through psychology is the importance of value directions. Point yourself in the direction of your values and align the things you do with that. So if your values are friendship, have friendship and family, fun, humour, spirituality, whatever. If it's spirituality, then find an exercise setting where that's infused within it. Yoga, for example. But don't park yourself in a yoga class, because that's what the influences around it. As soon as you lack that kind of autonomy, they call it, is at their very root. Like nothing. That's the start point. Is am I doing something that's personally meaningful, that is under my control, and I'm motivated for those kind of more internal reasons, rather than externally controlling. As you said, the guilt-ridden side. Some people strip their autonomy away. They're doing it to avoid punishment, to avoid falling short by social standard. They're doing it because they should do it. If you have should, must, have to, human beings are terrible with should, must and have to. We all know what it's like to be told to clean our bedroom when we're nippers. Yeah, you must do that. The second you get a must, you ever notice when somebody uses language with must in the title? But could, might, may... It has a different effect on us. So you could join the gym. I don't like the gym. The gym is not an environment that's my values.
Yeah, that's fair enough.
I don't see it. I train in my garage because I train like Rocky in Rocky 4. You've got Ivan Drago in the posh suite, and you've got Rocky pulling his mate along on a sled in the snow. It suits me to be alone and working out quietly with my music on. And it aligns myself. And there's no rules to this stuff.
So when it's a new year, obviously, we're not just maybe starting something new. Sometimes we're letting things go. We're saying, this is the time when I'm going to stop doing that thing that feels harmful to me. Obviously, there are different ways to do that. From your perspective, as, a psychology extraordinaire.
Wow. I'll take that.
Add that to your LinkedIn.
I'll take that. It's not true, but I will take it.
What's a good way to go about it? Is just cutting something out going to work?
As we said earlier, some people can just quit. They don't even really know it happened themselves. The epiphany, the big shift, that can happen. So you can stop a packet of cigarettes halfway through and you start exercise and never look back. Those people exist. If you're dealing with addictive processes, you're dealing with like a nicotine addiction or something that's really got your dopaminergic system jacked up. If you remove that in one, you're gonna elicit, as you'd expect, withdrawals. You're gonna make life very difficult. It's not a model you use in the addiction. It is, it is, isn't it? Because the only way to overcome addiction is abstinence, is to stop. But the notion of stopping it on its head, yes, you can, but in those more extreme settings, you got to have serious contingency in order to see that through. If you want to do it a milder behaviour, like more regular exercise, then you do shaping. So the shaping of the behaviour. So you want to go to the gym once a week is all right for a minute, or if you want to give something up, reducing your cigarette, if you're not fully kind of addicted, and you could do it in a more graduated sense because the stakes are a bit lower and the plans will still be in place. But those bigger behaviours that are really got very physiological, stopping them, if you're going to do that, you're going to have a lot of contingency around. That's why people end up in rehabilitation settings where there's lots of support. But the milder giving up doing it in an incremental way, shaping the behaviour, doing a bit less. You know what I mean? Shaping like a lump of clay. You know, you start off with the shape of what you want to do, which is give up something or do more of something. And then you just over time sculpt it into its final form. And the final form, then you're good to go. The idea that you can just be perfect. Everyone's work in progress, and so will be behaviour change.
When you were saying about, things that we keep at, things that we don't, I think about exercise, and I think about the fact that I've been doing yoga on and off for over 10 years now. So I clearly really like it, right? Yeah. That's something that clearly aligns with my values, because I'm really into spiritualism and I really like the kind of vibe that yoga gives me when I'm doing it. It makes me feel empowered. And then there's stuff that I've maybe seen other people do and given a go myself. Bouldering, like rowing at the gym, all these things. Why do we see someone else doing something, say it's an exercise activity like bouldering or climbing, and then why do we feel we have to do it ourselves too?
I wonder if we feel we have to. We're in the social norms kind of thing. They call it subjective norms, descriptive norms. So a subjective norm is what somebody's telling you should do. Yeah. So other people that are similar to me would approve of me doing that, and so we do it. But literature's shown that it's a narrow construct. Like, we actually we're not as influenced as you might think by what other people are telling us to do, but we are quite influenced about what we call it a descriptive norm. We look at what's described in our environment, and then we make it normative. So if you see it enough and you think people like me, people that you care about, that are important to you, that are relevant to you, if they're doing it, that's called a descriptive norm. It does influence you. It's one of the things that would influence that intention. You don't really see people dropping litter anymore, do you? Just flagrantly dropping it out of a window. And if you do, you really look disapprovingly. That's a descriptive norm. People don't do it. It's not the done thing, so you don't do it. So bouldering, if enough people seem to be bouldering, it's a bit like the ice baths. If enough people are doing these behaviours, mindfulness, you will feel the influence of it. And that can be a really positive thing. But it's easy to see how it's also a negative thing if you tune into the wrong norm, isn't it?
Yeah.
But subjective norms is surprisingly, like, when it comes to motivation, not as powerful a predictor of intentions as you might think. It's always attitudes and beliefs and control. And the social world is actually, surprisingly, particularly subjective norms, people telling you what to do, is a weaker predictor. But with descriptive norms included, it gets stronger. Yeah. So we're not just wholesale swept along by social pressures. Mostly it's whether we think it's worth doing and whether we can do it, whether it's up to us or whether it's too many obstacles in our way.
And do you think there's a bit of FOMO in there, fear of missing out?
Yeah, I mean, FOMO is a massive, huge, phone use is like that. You've got to be on the thing. TikTok, I only discovered very recently that TikTok is the thing now. I thought it was still Instagram, but apparently it's TikTok. But I've missed that shift, but it's missed me as well, and that's okay. But if people are being pulled from place to place and fear of missing out, what's happening over on TikTok? And
not much.
It depends on exactly. It depends on characteristics of the person, whether they're more or less influenced by that. But I know I said at the outset, if there was like a take home thing, it's that all of that said, if you don't plan, you don't have contingency. For the intention behaviour, the first thing you have to have is a plan of what, where, when and with who on all of the occasions. But the second thing is the contingency for temptation to perform the non-target behaviour. And you can do a really simple, it's a very, very simple strategy that the research loves. And they call them implementation intentions, which sounds posh, and that's why the academics put it in their titles. But it all boils down to what's called a simple if-then plan. And the if is the situation that's inviting you to go off track, and you write all of the possible ifs. So if I'm meant to go to the gym on a Tuesday and I don't want to go because I'm tired, if I don't want to go because I'm even happy and celebrating, you'll write all of your lists of ifs and you write them down, and then you have to plan the contingency, and they call that the appropriate response. And you then write all of the things that you can do in the face of that temptation, and you get two lists going, and then you get a ruler and a mechanical pencil, my favourite type of pencil. Yeah.
Thank you for telling me that.
It's important information. And you start at the beginning and you say, there's that if, and you line it up with the then that will work to you, and you draw a line. And you do that for all of them until you've got this web of lines from that to that, and then you pay attention to that list and you internalise it. And what you're doing there is you're taking the if and the then and you're linking them in time and space, and there's an automaticity that then starts to flow, where when that if presents, my friend needs help on the day I'm meant to be here, when that if presents, you don't have to sit and you don't have to think in the moment what to do. You've automated the response, and then you enact the response, and you're still on track. And you do that in your practice, and what a simple, elegant thing to do. You'll be surprised if you don't have that list. When those temptations act on you, which they will, you've got nothing. You've only got the moment you're in, and then you've only got willpower. So when a competing priority comes up and you feel like having that meal out with a friend because friendship's important, you haven't planned, what will I do when I'm tempted not to go to the gym because a friend wants to spend time with me and I want to have a delicious meal with them. If you haven't planned contingencies, you're high and dry with it.
Yeah.
Isn't that simple and elegant and also works?
So it's if-then planning.
If then planning is like the more colloquial way of saying it. Yeah. If then, sometimes they call it like volitional help sheets, coping sheets, whatever it might be. But an if then plan is
that makes a lot of sense.
It's almost annoyingly kind of like, why did I miss this?
This is the thing about psychology that I feel, or you know, like let's say counselling, therapy, you know, all these sorts of things. It all makes so much sense when we hear it, and you're like, yeah, of course. But it's really hard to actually put it into practice, I think. Behaviour
change is fantastically difficult. That's why when I said at the outset, like you say, do you write goals? And it's like, oh, of course he does. No, it takes you being deliberate about understanding the things that will work and being deliberate and practicing them. And it's about making the deliberate automatic. When you get people that just do the behaviour, it seems like they know something you don't. But all they've actually done is automated. It's become so habitual to them that they're in the gym on a Tuesday or whatever, they're doing yoga do you even think about, when you land in your yoga class, did you even really have to think about going there? It's become perhaps automated.
It's something that you love, right? So it's if it's something that you really enjoy, I think it's a lot easier. But obviously we can't always do things we enjoy. But just in terms of kind of, I'm just aware, you know, wrapping up. I certainly feel like I've got a lot of food for thought in terms of, you know, going into the new year with a healthier mindset about how to approach goals, and, you know, not new year, new me necessarily, but maybe a shinier me. What kind of tips can you, and you've already given us some, so thank you. But do you have more that you can end the episode with? More tips for sustaining our goals going into the new year?
Well, here's one for you that, again, it's a posh sounding thing. It's a horrible sounding word, but they call it abstination violation. I mean, what in the world does that even mean?
Abstination violation?
It rolls off the tongue, doesn't it? But what it means is, when you fall a bit off track, if you blow one tyre out in your car, you don't then go and damage the rest of the car. There's no sense in it, is there? If your wing mirror comes off, you go to the garage, you fix the wing mirror. One of the big things people do is they wreck the joint. It's a bit of a shame instinct, isn't there, to say, I have failed. So when you fall off track, remind yourself that you're a human being, and remind yourself of your values, remind yourself of the goals, remind yourself of the if-thens, remind yourself of all of that contingency and why you're doing it, make it feel important and personally relevant, get back on track, and accept that perceived failure is just that, a normal part of behaviour change, and you give yourself a break. In a way, dethrone yourself. You know, you're a human being. When you miss that class, pick up the next class. But by the way, it's important to say, it's not like letting yourself off the hook. Like, I'll kind of do it, and if I don't, I'll just say, well, there, you didn't. No, it's not the same thing. It's just understand that part of behaviour change are those moments where, under the pressure of life, your temptation might break through on you. And that plan you made might not quite be solidified enough, and you might slip and not do the thing that was on, but go back to it and just keep that kind of approach. I don't know, in today's age, a bit more of a compassionate, value-driven approach to what your goal is. So new you, new me, you know, the corporate entities that are pressing on you, the social media, if it's aligned to your values, then do it.
Yeah.
But if it's not, then you best find something that is, and you'll be surprised. And your yoga speaks to that, because you don't notice the behaviour change because you're in charge. You're pointing in a way you want to go. So you know, when you're in a shop and someone's pulling the end of the trolley on you, you know, you're like, get off the trolley, I'm pushing the trolley. You know, someone's pulling you down the frozen something aisle, and you're like, get off my trolley. It's like,
I want to go down the sweets aisle. Get off me.
What about that for a note? That would be a good note to finish on. Or like, drive your own trolley.
Be the driver, not the passenger.
I think so.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wonderful.
But what do you mean, a passenger? You're not going to get in the trolley, are you? Yeah.
No, I'm driving it.
Well, I mean, I think,
But no.
I think I'm following the trolley bit, but you get the point, don't you?
Yes.
You know what that feels like.
I do, and it all makes sense. So thank you very much for sharing your psychological wisdom.
Thank you very much for having me. I enjoyed every moment. I did.
Thanks to Lee for joining us on the first episode of Explained, and thank you, listener, for tuning in. Like what you heard today? Let us know. You can find us online at solent.ac.uk, as well as on all your favourite social media platforms. Join us next time when we will be discussing why more than half of the UK's population now play video games. Thank you, and see you soon.